We have gone a surprisingly long time without a full-fledged 3D Mario game, and an even longer time when you consider the overall consistency in terms of depth. After some choice quotes from series creator Shigeru Miyamoto, there's reason to believe that won't be the case for too much longer. Let's talk about it. 2022 is looking to be a bit of a greatest hits in terms of Nintendo Switch releases, many of which being follow-ups to some of the heavy hitters from early on in Switch's life. It's pretty close to being an everyone's here affair, with even a Pokemon game accounted for, unlike the first year of Nintendo Switch. We've gone just about as long without a new mainline Mario game as we have without a brand new post Breath of the Wild Zelda game, but yet and still, despite getting a reveal for the sequel of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild TM almost 3 years ago, and even a release window for that very game for a few months now, we still have no word on when we'll see what's to come for the Mario series post Super Mario Odyssey. That is, until now. During the latest financial briefing investor Q&A, Shigeru Miyamoto spoke on the continued evolution for the 3D games in the Super Mario franchise. The excerpt from which that caught my attention being, and I quote, "After the release of Super Mario Galaxy in 2007, the goal was to develop a more accessible 3D Super Mario game, and the result was New Super Mario Bros. Wii, a basic side-scrolling Super Mario game that even new players could easily play. When we develop software, we strive to incorporate new elements, but at the same time, we want to make it easy for even first-time players to have fun. Recently, people of all generations have been enjoying the 3D Mario game Super Mario Odyssey, so for 3D Mario going forward, we want to try expanding further in new ways. It's no secret that after the massive success of the Wii with the casual gaming market that it essentially created, Nintendo has grappled with the challenge of balancing developing their games in such a way that they can retain as much of the casual players as possible, all the while satiating the long-time more hardcore fans of their games at the same time. Both Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild proved that even the casual audience, though, could embrace games with mechanical depth given the right design, and these quotes from Miyamoto say to me that Nintendo is aware of this and will be doubling down because of it. I by no means expect this to result in even one super try-hard, punishing Mario game, but I do believe this means Nintendo will be a little less conservative when it comes to developing an experience that will be challenging for all, and that can be done by, sure, doing brand new things that have never been done before, like mechanics, alongside creative platform challenges to complement the new possibilities the new abilities would provide, but also through just doing more of what Mario Odyssey attempts to do pretty often in its game design. Its difficulty is pretty scalable. For instance, on the base level, there's no real penalty for dying beyond losing some coins that, in the grand scheme of things, are reasonable enough to come by so players don't feel arbitrarily walled off from progression just because they're not as good at the game as some other players are. Thankfully, Super Mario Odyssey understands that hefty punishments for failing to clear a given challenge doesn't make the game any more challenging than it would have been if the player is simply allowed to try again. In practice, it just makes it frustrating for anyone not stubborn enough to butt heads with the game's design until they overcome it. On the other hand, I'm equally as thankful that Mario Odyssey's design isn't limited by its effort to be approachable on this base level in two important ways. First, and most apparent, the level design is no less of a challenge than any other core Mario game has been. They didn't need to nerf the way levels are made to make them approachable to everyone, and this is consistent with the whole of the series, to be honest. Second, and more importantly in my opinion, they upped their focus on presenting higher skilled players with optional platforming challenges to overcome and reward them with more coins for clearing them. And I don't just mean by the 3-coin approach that they tried with the new Super Mario series or the post-game worlds that are usually done in Mario games. My hope for the future of 3D Mario games would be that they take these lessons and expand on them. It doesn't need to be a rare fun Easter egg that Nintendo places a reward of some sort in hard to reach places on on every map in the game. And they could go further by rewarding players with more direct scaling difficulty, provided they can find an interesting way to do so that also feels well designed. If not that, they could always go in a similar direction to what they have done in the past with floodless challenges, or more recently, the scarecrows in Odyssey. Knowing Nintendo though, this isn't just going to be about difficulty. That being said, I'm curious about what Miyamoto's comments will mean for the general game design direction for Mario games in terms of its mechanics. With the exception of the first 3D Mario game, these games tend to be designed around unique core platforming mechanics of some sort. Odyssey sort of had shades of 64, with the bulk of the experience also being driven by Mario's base abilities outside of Cappy. Much like Breath of the Wild's challenges, the right way to do something is frequently possible to circumvent by just using Mario's base movement options. But at the end of the day, Cappy was the headliner. This is the way to go, I think. Player choice is important, and even as a gamer that is closer to the hardcore end of the spectrum than casual, I'd have to say that having some sort of new gimmick to reinvigorate the formula is a massive draw for me, even if ultimately its existence ends up being more of a challenge to get around than it does a tool that I need to use to get through the game. However, the complicated part for this video, trying to figure out what to do next with Mario, is that there's no good way to guess what that mechanic may be. I, for one, would have never guessed a sentient water tank in Sunshine or a sentient hat in Odyssey. Mario in Space was a bit hiding in plain sight, to be fair, but even that wasn't something I would have guessed. So I'm personally here for whatever they do, as long as that thing is as engaging as those past ideas were, in my opinion. This wasn't mentioned or really even alluded to by Miyamoto in his comments, but a gimmick that I would like to see them explore more is a fully dedicated two-player cooperative Mario game, where one player controls Mario and the other Luigi. And I don't mean in the new Super Mario Bros. Or 3D World way. I want a game that fully takes advantage of the characters. I want the camera's perspective to feel as epic and all that good stuff. I'd love to see what a 3D Mario game could be if, say, the Luigi in the game was largely based off of Luigi's Mansion in addition to his traditional existing platforming abilities. I want the level design to completely complement the dynamic between the two on a gameplay level. I'm sure people would want to play this game alone, and that should be possible too, of course, but I think this could still be something they explore in a future Mario game that could be significantly more interesting than just playing alone. Although, if done well, I do see this becoming its own thing rather than it being a 3D Mario game moving forward, sort of like how Yoshi's Island was a Mario game technically, but it became its own franchise. I'd also like to see Nintendo expand on what they did in Bowser's Fury with the bosses in the next major 3D Mario game having a bigger influence on the world outside of the boss battles they're traditionally limited to. I want to see what a Mario world that's entirely under the control of, say, Wart or Kamek or hell, Wario. I think the generic water world, fire world, sky world, so on and so forth is cool and works, but those themes in tandem with the influence of boss characters like these could result in a particularly interesting visual design at the very least, and the gameplay most likely would follow suit as well, with plenty of new ideas that wouldn't have been presented otherwise. I'd imagine Bowser's Fury would have either resulted in some sort of progress in the way these games are formatted and designed if that experiment itself wasn't already the product of their next project release, in a similar way to how Mario Party Superstars having online play likely was the reason Super Mario Party was patched with support for the same. Current and past developments influence the future all of the time, so I would honestly be more surprised if Nintendo didn't take inspiration from Bowser's Fury in the next full 3D Mario game. In fact, that circles back to the difficulty as well, considering the fact that Bowser's Fury also made an effort to move the needle in that regard as well with the way it handled Bowser Jr.'s AI. Honestly, it could point to the co-op thing I mentioned earlier as well, but that could be reading too far into it. I want power suits in this game. With all of that said, Cappy is cool and so is Flood, but I think it'd be sick to see Nintendo return to power suits in a full 3D Mario game. More so if this means that they'll expand on those as well. Like, I'd be super down to see them give each power suit its own full moveset rather than one specific attack and or traversal ability. This could stand to add a ton of depth to the game by doing something like this. Cappy's abilities got sort of close to this idea, since those abilities were obviously more than just pressing the B button to activate a specific ability more often than not. For the most part, they completely changed Mario's traversal and, in some cases, combat abilities. Seeing this applied to classic abilities like the Fire Flower, lapsed abilities like the Cape Feather, or entirely new power suits could easily be a headlining feature if done in a consistently well-designed way. That said, this is something that could change the multiplayer proposition in the sense that either Luigi would end up being a more generic Super Mario-centric version of himself, so he would be able to make use of these suits too, but alternatively, it could instead mean that Luigi would have some sort of different effect when obtaining these power-ups that would enhance his Luigi's Mansion-specific toolkit. Either could be cool in my opinion. Mario isn't really a game that Nintendo tends to spend a whole lot of time promoting, so there's actually a chance that they could complete the 2017 mirroring that's going on with 2022 by announcing this game in the early months of 2022 and releasing it sometime during the holiday. I'd at least assume that we'll learn what they plan to do after Mario Odyssey during 2022. I don't know if that means it will come out in 2022 or if it will be a game that's teased for 2023, but I'm pretty sure we will see something big from Mario next year, given the movie and all of that. When do you think we'll see the future of 3D Mario games, and what would you like to see come of that? Let me know that and more in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this every week. Okay, that's it for me. See you next week.